Bison was the coach at the time, and he says, "Sig, come over here." I was an 8th grader. "Come over here and I want to demonstrate to the team how to keep a defensive player away from you to take the ball away. So I want to demonstrate for you." And so he said, "No, try to steal." And so he started dribbling. Pretty soon I had the basketball. He says, "We're going to do it again." So he started dribbling the basketball again. Pretty soon I had the basketball again. Well, the kids on the bench started laughing. And he says, "Well, it's a good thing he's an 8th grader. He'd probably be playing in your spot." Well, anyway, after graduation, I did teach in Smithwick 2 years. End of the year, my 59, they closed the Smithwick School. And tonight, I do have some of my students, my awesome kids that I taught down there in Smithwick. And I like to have those kids, those men and women, to stand up. I hope the cheerleaders stood up too. We had cheerleaders too. We took a tour of the dance hall. It was an old dance hall, and so we wanted a basketball court. And so we took and remodeled the lake and raised the roof and stuck our basketball hoop in there. We had a pot-belly stove down the other end. 15 minutes before school got out, I told 2 boys to go over there and start the fire, because we was going to have basketball practice. We did that. We also had a football team. The girls played with us, with the boys. And the Ferguson girls is 2 of the girls that I had on our football team. I got the pads from up here at the school, junior high, and we played Oral and Buffalo Gap. Of course, Larry Rams, he was going to the Oral School. And so we kicked off, and they kicked off to us, and Laura Lee had the ball, and she come running down the field, and there was Larry. She ducked her head and ran into his belly, and he lost his weight to air. He was down there growling around. He finally got up, but we had a lot of fun down there. Okay. After that year, in 1960, Bruce Crossway called me and asked me to come to Hot Springs High and be the study hall supervisor. Then I became involved with the sports system, helping out with the freshmen and JV football, basketball, and track. I have real good memories of many of those games. In fact, most of those kids that went undefeated, I had them as freshmen and sophomores, and we went 2 years in the JVs, 9-0, and then finally, as they got to be seniors, they became state champions, or conference champions, I should say. Keeping score for basketball games and the basketball court, was made of tiles, kind of like this. And it was very slippery. Kids were falling down, going in there for layups. And I had to, as I was refereeing, I'd have to keep the kids from hitting the wall. And so I thought to myself, well, we got to do something about this. And so I went to the school board and asked them if they wouldn't go in on the new floor. And they said, well, how much are you going to raise? Well, I said, I think I can raise $25,000. They said, well, we'll do it with you. Well, Douglas has already put a floor in up there, Douglas Ellsworth, and it was about $50,000. And so I formed a committee, and we went and I sent over 500 letters to alumni, and a lot of you are here again. And we did raise $27,000 for a new floor for Case Auditorium. The Hall of Fame is a twofold project that Carlos and Quentin are doing, honoring the athletes and having fundraisers to complete the seating project at Woodward Field. We know funds do work. At this time, I'd like to thank again my family, Brandy, Bart, and Radine, and of course my wife, Nevada. Fundraising, every sport that I had. She was my secretary, and she is my Hall of Famer. Thank you.
I just got one thing to say. Many of you know my mom and dad, but when they left the house tonight, of course, many of you know Nevada, she says, Ralph, you just make sure your fly's up before you get up. True story, right?
Every guy in here.
Oh no, they're on. Not only did I check my fly, I was looking around the room to see how many. I don't know how many times the teacher would be standing in the hallway, my hands in my pocket, and it was greasy. Great advice, right? I got most of my family here. My daughter showed up. She's been in Gillette and watched my granddaughter play. But I'd like to introduce you to my family before I turn the microphone over. First on the end there, and please stand up. You're not out of the Lost family. You're a Glenn. Get up there. That's my youngest daughter, Jody. Lives in Chicago. Pam, please stand. That's my second. Eric, his lovely wife, Lorna. And there on the end, stand up there, Jake. Papa's favorite right there. Great family. I'm very, very fortunate. And 60 years. You're taking the pressure off of me. Connie and I are getting close to 50. I'm getting to her. We were at Deese's dance in Austin, Texas, and they put you all out right after the wedding. You start the wedding dance, they put us all out on the floor, and we start dancing. And then pretty soon this guy that's running the DJ starts going, if you've just been married, sit down. We keep dancing. Pretty soon they said, if you've been married 5 years, sit down. I'm starting to catch the gist of what this routine is, and Connie and I are trying to crunch the numbers. Of course, she started crying, but 50 years, please stand up, Connie. We always enjoy the opportunities to come back here to Hot Springs. It's been very good to us. I don't know how many times I still put principles, things that I learned here. Coach Tays, Coach Thies, Coach Turbeville, Coach Scott. I mean, all of them. It was a learning curve for me before I left and went back home to Wyoming. But principals are still here. I still promote this place. I know that JT got one of my prodigies I grew up with in Wyoming. I'd always tell him he'd be grumbling about things in Wyoming. I said, you need to go to Hot Springs and coach. Well, finally one day he did, John Scott, but he just loves it here too. He's the same way, but our family just applauds all of you. We really do. Now for the last recipient, this is a man that I wished I would have met. Just reading his bio, very impressive. Administrator, still teaching in the classroom, taking a cut and pay, things that we don't hear nowadays, but quite a man. I'd like to introduce my left guard, my shot putter, Quentin Hope.
This is a big deal for me. I first learned of the name Woodward as a young boy in Hot Springs growing up. Those hot, hot summer days, oh my. What I would do is hop on my bike, ride down to the Jack and Jill grocery store, load up on ice cream novelty items and Shasta soda, spend a few minutes talking to Mr. Stokes, store owner. Then I would ride my bike right across the street and I would park under these big trees that created a lot of shade. I would sit on the ground and I would lean my back against this huge stone arch and I would cool off. Every time I would do that, I would always look up at the top of that arc and I would read, Woodward Field. Woodward? What's that mean? Entering in my freshman year at Hot Springs High School, I was down at the business office and I noticed a picture on the wall of a man. It was Harry R. Woodward. And the caption read something like, Coach, educator, 40 years Hot Springs High School. Wow, that's what we call the football field. That's the name on the arc. Last October, I was returning to my office in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, being out for the day, and a voicemail message awaited me. Playing the message, the person identified themselves as Robin Robinson. Don't know Robin Robinson. Sounded like Robin was from the South. In her message, Robin had stated that she had been online, that she came across an article regarding the bench seating project at Woodward Field on the campus of Hot Springs High School. She also said she had a special interest, that she and her two siblings would like to make a contribution. She left me her phone number, and at the end of the message, Robin Robinson said, "I'm the granddaughter of Harry R. Woodward." Wow. Granddaughter. Picture on the wall. Woodward Field. Stone art. This is history. This is Hot Springs High School. So I'm sitting in my office and I'm overcome by goosebumps. Because I'm thinking back to the very first induction in 2016. We had one of the inductions was Chet Bruce, mid-1920s. His daughter and grandson came in here and accepted the award. Last year, James Kosher, late 1920s, 1930s, his son flew in from Albuquerque to accept the award. Harry R. Woodward knew those two guys. He knew who they were. He knew their families. That's goosebumps. Before I ask them, well, tonight we have grandchildren. We have great-grandchildren. And we have great-great-grandchildren who've come in from all over the country to be here with you, to be here with these other inductees, to honor Harry R. Woodward. Before I bring the family up, I'd like to share a little information. Harry R. Woodward was born April 4th, 1893 at Hurley, South Dakota. He graduated from Hurley High School in 1911 and received a Bachelor of Arts degree from Dakota Wesleyan University in 1916. He was hired as coach and science teacher by the Hot Springs School District on August 25th, 1916. In 1918, he was promoted to high school principal, retaining his coaching and teaching duties. On December 18th, 1918, Mr. Woodward married Mary Catherine Cleaver of Hot Springs. They had two sons, Harry Jr. and Quentin. Football was first organized athletics in Hot Springs, beginning in 1913. 5 games were played, with 2 wins. One, which was over the town team. Hot Springs had a town team. 7-0. Harry R. Woodward coached the 1916, 1917, and 1918 football team to Black Hills Conference champions. And the 1917 team were state champions. During the Depression years, the school operated on registered warrants. Woodward had a contract in 1932 for 3 years, $3,600. In 1932, a time when salaries were being cut, Mr. Woodward offered to tear up his contract so the teachers would not have to take a pay cut. The first homecoming, talk about homecoming weekend, the first homecoming, 1937, as a tribute to their well-loved administrator, Woodward Athletic Field was dedicated in 1914. That's Harry R. Woodward on the microphone. In 1945, Superintendent Woodward and board members took out a loan to pay for lighting at Woodward Field. The final payment was made after the winter game in the fall of 1946, and it cost the taxpayers $0. Woodward Field became the first lighted football field in the Black Hills. At that time, in the mid-40s, Woodward Field and Stadium was considered one of the finest sports venue up on the hill there, up on College Hill. That's what I'm talking about. Stadiums in the state with a quarter-mile track and stone bleachers. Harry R. Woodward was a forward-thinking man. It was because of him that happened up on College Hill. He was a visionary. He had in his mind what that stadium would look like. So what he did in 1936, he sat down and he put it to paper. Up in that left-hand corner, Harry Woodward drew an image of a buffalo, a bison, a tatanka. Here was his vision of the track, that quarter-mile cinder track. You notice on the south end, trees. So on the east end, that led to the high school. I think Robin said that her and her siblings would come to Hot Springs to visit Grandpa Woody. That's what everybody called him. All the teachers called him Grandpa, or Woody. They called him Grandpa Woody, to water those trees. Now, on the north end, Mr. Woodward suggested plans to accommodate 500 more pupils with a gymnasium to seat 2,000 persons. Sounds like the Case Auditorium to me, on that north end. I don't know this man. I don't know him. I know him how I read about him. One last image. One last image. This is a special picture. And I talked to Cheryl. She has it. Greg Berg, class of 1976 alumni, forwarded this original picture to me. This is the championship football team, 1917. And I want to read the members of this team because they're going to be names recognizable to people in this room tonight. First row, from left to right. Clarence Bruce. Arthur Wright, Craig Thornton, Dewey C. Wright, Arthur Larvey, Tommy Banks, middle row, left to right, George Berg, R. Calhoun, Maurice Brushman, Phil Petty, Shelter Shoby, Bruce Engelhart. In the back row, George Gibson, Wayne Gammett, Stanley March, Earl Prunty, and Coach Woodward. Here we are. This is Hot Springs history. This is Hot Springs business people. I've heard every inductee say the support is incredible. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce the granddaughters, the great-granddaughters, and the great-great-granddaughters of Harry R. Woodward.
I'm overwhelmed by your response. I am the Robin Robinson that Quentin referred to. I searched a long time before I found a man with the last name of Robinson to marry. I'm also very proud of the Woodward name. And I'd like to say a few things tonight, but first of all, I would like for Lee Tripp, my brother's son-in-law, to say a few words.
Wow, what an event. What a welcome. Thank you so much. We're truly blessed. Terry couldn't be here today, and he is just extremely proud of having his grandfather in the Hall of Fame. Let me tell you that Harry R. Woodward Sr. touches my life every single day. I have pictures like this on my mantle of this football team, and I look at it and I read the articles and I do the research, and every day that reminds me to do the best that I can do with what I have and to be forward thinking. I also have to put a nod out to this community. This is an awesome community. You guys recently went through a fire. Being from Colorado, I've been through 3 major forest fires. Been through the Waldo Canyon, the Black Forest Fire, and the Hayman Fire. And the work that your fire department did, and the work that your community did with that fire is far superior than what we had in Colorado. What they did, the care they took for the TY Ranch and the Johnson Ranch, you may know it as, I'm speechless about it. We actually live in Black Forest. We drive through the burn scars every day, and I'm thanking God that your community took care of that place so much. So thank you so much for being Hot Springs.
Well, the great-great-granddaughter didn't make it, so she's not here tonight, but there are 9 of us here, and it's so special to us to be...
Robin, and Maureen.
She's not a great-great. I messed up. There were 2 great-greats that were supposed to be here. We've only got 1. I'm sorry. But anyway, it's great to be here. And I'll move on from there.
I gotta say this is not normal for her. She is a very good public speaker.
Most of the people up here are from the South, as you can probably tell from some of our accents. And some of us are really big Atlanta Braves fans, and I'm one of those. We have another one. My first Atlanta Braves game that I went to was at the Atlanta Fulton County Stadium. It was wonderful. You stayed in the stadium hotel, we walked across the street to the stadium, had a wonderful ball game, and it was great. Well, the next thing I knew, they tore it down, and then they built Turner Field. Well, that's a magnificent place. However, now you had to drive your car to get there. Wasn't as convenient, but it was pretty cool. Has a statue of Hank Aaron out front. So I thought that was pretty nice. Then I heard last year that they are abandoning Turner Field, and they have now built a stadium out in North Atlanta. Now, it takes hours, if not days, to get to North Atlanta. So I don't think I'll be going to any more of their games. But I've mentioned this to tell you what a relief it was to me a year ago to find out on social media that Woodward Field indeed was still here and that you're playing sports there. And I was so pleased that there was work being done to improve the seating, improve the fields, and that's when I formed a